Hey everybody, welcome to Review with Me, your review guide of shows, movies, and everything in between. Be sure to click the like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get on with this review. Hey y'all, we are back with another review and recap of The Later Daters Season 1. This episode we are reviewing is episode 4. Okay, let's get into this one. So we start off with Anise on her blind date with this white gentleman who is British, and he's a handsome fella. I gotta say fella for him. He actually disclosed that he exclusively dates black women. Black women are his type, and that is whom he is only interested. Now, this surprises Anise, as of course it may surprise many of you, myself as well. But I thought this was endearing, honestly. Some people may see as, oh, he may have like a fetish. But you know what? I think we're at a point in our society where we're over kink shaming. And I think that includes fetish shaming. Like, if you exclusively like dating black women and you're a white guy, so be it. You know, I just never subscribed to the whole, well, him being a white man and him dating only or even marrying black women, he could still be a racist. I just don't believe in that. Yes, I know there were obviously white slave owners who owned and violated and had intercourse with their black female slaves. Got it. But there are white men who may just exclusively like black women. Like, I don't feel like it's this like, oh, I gotta circle it back to what happened in 1818. Like, can we just let people just like who they like at this point? Anyway, I'm going off a tangent. This day was a cute day. They went to this bistro, and Anise was dressed well. One thing about Anise, when she's on a date, at least on this date in particular, she has a way of like interviewing. It felt like she was coaching him through dating black women. Like, she was asking him questions that weren't really vulnerable. I didn't feel like she was sharing more about herself. She was more intrigued over the fact that he's white and he's a white guy who exclusively dates black women. So it just seems like she just wasn't that into him. And though he was nice and well-mannered throughout the date, we learned at the end of the date when he was talking to the producer that he wasn't into her really either. Like, he didn't feel a vibe with her, and I could see that because the way that Anise looked, like, she's just like you could see her face, she's like leaning in, where like, ma'am, are you his guidance counselor? Like, can you know how to be sexy. But I think with him, she just, despite her being much older and aware that there are interracial relationships, she is still very much embedded in the time that she was brought up, her upbringing, and understanding that segregation was a norm and it was frowned upon and illegal at the time to not illegal to date those outside of your race, particularly white and black. So I think that is still embedded in her, and maybe she just doesn't really find white, or she never had the opportunity to explore white men in that mindset. So when she looks at one, maybe she'll say, oh, he's handsome, but that's it. Because she did tell him on the date that she had a crush on a white guy when she was 15 years old. They were crushing and flirting with each other in school, and he had the nerve, the audacity, the bravery to ask her out. And she was like, wait, hold on. What? You're not supposed to do that. What are you doing? And that's so startling because he's doing what's natural, right? He's just going with the vibe. He felt a vibe. Obviously, it was reciprocal, as she says, she was flirting with him back. But being that she was 15 and yeah, he was the same age, I'm not trying to make it seem like it was anything sinister, but they were young, and at the time when it was not encouraged to have interracial relationships. So she just felt uncomfortable to move forward in that. And for her to recall that moment on this date at her grown age of 62 years old, and she's using that as a point of reference. It's one thing to have a story, a little story time, but for that to be said on a first date with this white guy whom maybe is her first date in her adult years with a white man, I just felt like it was a startling conversation to have, and you could see it in his face. He was just like, oh, okay. Like, it was weird. But anyway, yeah, that was a dud. Okay, so now we are seeing Nate on another date. And one thing about Nate, he's going to go on another date. He's going to go on another date with a bouquet of flowers again, which is nice. Don't get me wrong. But you know how some women be like, oh, I don't like receiving good morning texts from a man, like just saying good morning, because it makes them feel like they're sending it to multiple women. That's how I feel about Nate when it comes to dates. Because, okay, cool, you're on a date with him. He makes you feel so special in the moment. But he could get a bouquet of flowers for any and every one. Like, everyone was going to get a bouquet of... I could meet Nate today, just on the street. I'm about to enter a store, and he has a bouquet of flowers. Like, that's how much... He must have a garden. He must have maybe he has a best friend, a brother who works at a floral shop, but like the bouquet of flowers it's a nice gesture, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying that to say sometimes women, we get so caught up in the whole like, oh my gosh, he did this, these gestures, when they could do these gestures with anybody. So I'm just saying all that to say you're not special. You're not special. Sorry. Anyway, he's on this date with Lisa. Lisa is, I believe she says 56. She looks good. She looks like a 56 version of Maya, the singer Maya. Like, she could be Maya's aunt, I feel like. Maybe her mother. Anyway, Maya is recently divorced, really. She was divorced 2 years ago. She was married to her high school sweetheart. They've known each other since she was 15. So that's a long-standing relationship. And she has 2 kids. She learns more about Nate. Nate reveals that he has 2 kids as well. He's been married 16 years and has been divorced for the past 10. So they're vibing initially, especially because Nate is just so attracted to her. He was like, when he saw her come in, he was hoping that it was her, that this is the person who he is on a date with. And luckily it is her. And he says something interesting in the one-on-one. He says, I noticed like she takes care of her look, her appearance, and she looks good. So that's a commonality that we share. And it's like, I don't know, like something about that, something about him saying that gave me the ick, because it gives the impression that he only cares about superficial things. Like, okay, yes, it's good to look good. Don't get me wrong. It's good to look good. It's good to take care of yourself. But I do wonder if that is something that he only cares about, especially since he is OCD. He is very much particular. I worry that if he were to date Lisa a long term, is he going to give her grace for days when she's not looking on her P's and Q's, right? Like, if he's going to give her grace for, oh, my legs aren't shaved. I remember I was dating this guy years ago, and my legs weren't shaved while we were out together, and my legs were out. I was in his car on the passenger side, and he has his hand on my legs, and he notices, like, he's like rubbing my legs, and he notices the stubby hair. You know, that moment in between a shave or wax, whichever one you get. I get waxes, but I haven't gotten one. I'm not really. Anyway, the point is, my legs were hairy. Not like, giving bear vibes, but I'm a woman, I'm a human being, and I have hair. Whatever, no big deal. In my head, it's no big deal, but to him, it was a big deal. And so I say all that to say, some people are really big on things that are natural to someone else, but shouldn't be natural to them. And what I mean by that is, though it is natural to have body hair, right? Though it is natural to have that in any place, some men will see that as, oh, she's unkempt, or, oh, she's unhygienic. And that's totally far from the truth. It's just a place of ignorance, or maybe you grow up in this like just misogynistic mindset where you don't give women I could go on and on, y'all. This is not the podcast for it, but the point is, I feel like Nate would not give grace to his woman looking unkept in his version of that, and that could include having hairy legs. That's just what I wanted to say on that date. Okay, so we cut to Lori. Lori's getting on her date. I think this is her first one, I believe. We're getting to her date. Her date is a gentleman named Ty. He's 59 years old, divorced, 7 years single, 3 kids, and he is an investor entrepreneur. So, okay. Lori walks into this date. She walks into this date, and one thing about Lori, I think I said this before, she doesn't really give much eye contact. I think she has a hard time looking in people's eyes. Sometimes she does it well, sometimes she doesn't. So that's interesting. But anyway, she walks in, mind you, she looks great. She has this dress, this like silk shirt dress on. Her legs are out, her feet's pedicured, and she has some nice shoes, and you can see her feet, right? So one thing Ty notices is her feet. He says, wow, I love how you have your feet done, and I love the nail color. And so he picks up on that. So that immediately gives the impression that he is a feet guy. He also makes that clear during the date. He said, yeah, I'm the type I will send you to go get, like, I'll cover for you to go get your feet done. I'll take care of that for you. And so she was pleased by that, because if you like something, you should be able to support that, right? If you like me getting my hair done and looking a certain style, or just me having my hair done, pay for it. Okay. Just to circle back to the previous story real quick. He wanted my legs to be super clear, like no stubby, because again, stubby hair is just a sign of I'm in transition of the next couple of weeks of getting the wax. And he wanted my legs to be completely bare. Don't want to feel any stubborn or stubs. And there was no mention of, oh, I could cover it for you. Like, if you want that done and I'm open to that, pay. And I could go on and on about that. Anyway, that relationship was super short. So getting back to the show, Ty was, sharing with her how he is very narrow-minded when it comes to dating life in Atlanta. Apparently, he doesn't, he fixates more on what he has going on in his life and doesn't really spend more time in the dating field. So Lori makes a good point, like, okay, well, if you're more fixated on your businesses, how do you make time for your loved one, whom you're interested in, your romantic interest? And he said a good point, like, when I like someone, I make time for them. So that just gave me the impression that whoever he was dating before, whether it was casual or not, it wasn't sufficient enough for him to feel like he needed to give the person his 100% attention. Now, Lori instantly, I don't think she was attracted to him. She said as soon as she saw him, she wanted to give him an upgrade because apparently she doesn't like her man to wear a white t-shirt under a button-down shirt. Okay. I don't know. I guess I'm not just like big on like fashion things, but I honestly didn't see the big deal. I mean, I kind of get what she's saying after the fact, but to me, I don't think it's a deal breaker. I think he's the type of guy who could receive feedback and will allow his woman to dress him or to point out some suggestions. So I don't think that's a big deal. Nonetheless, Lori it seems that she is very big on style. I mean, she said it herself, so not even it seems. It's evident. It's evident that she's big on style. She's big on appearances. She likes to be trendy with her looks, and that's her prerogative. And it seems that she wants that in return with whomever she's dating. So she was definitely unimpressed with his style. She also mentioned on the date that he looks familiar. Later on, we learned that they actually matched on a dating site online, and they exchanged numbers because when they were ending the date, she actually pulled up his number. Because with iPhones, I don't know if this is the same thing with Android users, but when you have someone's phone locked in from years ago and you've never deleted their number, and that person still has the same number, if you happen to type those same digits, then that same contact will appear. So she found out that they talked for a bit. Apparently he ghosted her, and he doesn't remember. He does not remember, and that's actually insulting. But apparently this took place maybe around 2017, she says. And I mean, this wasn't going. The thing with Lori, I don't know. Lori, maybe there's something else going on. I don't want to speculate, but I don't know if she's all the way dating who she wants, if you catch my drift. Okay, so we cut back to Nate. Nate, again, is on this date with Maya's aunt. And they're vibing. It's a good time. You could tell Lisa is really into him. She even asked him for the selfie move. I think that's like the thing that they do on this show. And Nate was surprised by that. He was like, oh, okay, yeah, we could take it on our way out. And that made me wonder, is Nate someone who doesn't prefer his woman to make the first move on things that he should make the first move on, that he believes he should make the first move on? You know what I mean? Like, there are some men who are very strict on this is what a man does, and a woman should just sit in her place. And maybe this move that Lisa made, though it was, was a cute move, it was just a part of the process, he was taken aback because it seemed like she was taking control of the moment. And we know with Nate likes to be in control. Look at his house. He doesn't want anyone to live in his house. His kids, his grown-ass kids, he don't want them living there. He finds no reason for them to be there now that they're grown. And he doesn't want Jackie there when she does pop up and look through his refrigerator. He's about to lose it on her. Like, he is very particular. So in that moment when Lisa said, oh, we should take a selfie. Let's take a selfie. I think that maybe turned him off. We also learned that Lisa has her adult children live in the same home as her. And that also made Nate feel bothered because he doesn't believe in that. He believes his grown kids should be out living on their own and figuring life out, and he wants his house to himself. So, okay. So that kind of threw him off a little bit because the way Lisa shared about her grown kids living at home with her, she was very protective over that. She's very still much of an active mother. Not to say that Nate's not an active father, but I think Lisa is more of a coddling type of mother, which I'm not saying that in judgment. I'm just saying her parenting style may be more gentle, while Nate may be more distant, if that makes sense. So they end off the day. They go their separate ways. Again, Lisa is very into Nate. She's saying to us, the audience and the producer, that the date went faster than she would have liked. So that basically means that she would have liked it to be longer. She would have wanted more time with Nate. She was really feeling him. So we see Nate on the phone with Logan, the dating coach, telling her about how the date went. He's saying the attraction is there. The date went really well. Then Logan asks him, so are you going to ask her out on another date? Nate says to wait until the process is over before he decides to continue with her, if he chooses to do so. And in that moment, you could see because they're speaking via FaceTime. And Logan immediately put her eyes down, like she was annoyed or disapproving of his action there, of his decision there, because she's thinking, why not continue with her? But Nate, from what I could tell, is the type of guy who wants to always see what else is out there. Let me see how the grass is greener over there on that lawn, Oh, let's go over there on that backyard right there. That's what Nate is. And we're going to see in a future episode, this is a little foreshadow of how that bites him in the butt. Okay, so we get back to Suzanne. Remember Suzanne, 63-year-old Suzanne, life of the party, very light, very much of a laugher. She likes to have a good time. She's a big Georgia Bulldogs fan. Anyway, she is on this date with Avery, back with Avery again. Avery is accompanying her to a game, a Georgia Bulldog game. And they're vibing. They're having a good time. He's like a young soul, it seems like. The way that his vibe is, you would think that he's younger than his age. But nonetheless, I think that's the reason why they gel so well. So there's a moment before they enter the stadium, I guess. They're in the parking lot. And Avery is checking out the cooler and seeing how many alcoholic beverages Suzanne brought. Now, it is a bit concerning because almost every beverage is alcoholic. And he's like, where's the Diet Coke, sweetie? And she says, oh, that's a line that guys use, sweetie. And she's like, what's my name? What's my name? And he's joking with her like, oh, your name is Babylicious. Your name is, whatever joke he said. And then she really then asked him, you know my name, right? He's like, yes, Suzanne, I know your name. I thought that was a funny moment. Like, did she really think he forgot her name? This is their second date. He's been very much interested and showing strong interest in her. So I definitely don't think he would have forgotten her name. But that was a little funny moment there. She also made a point that made me question, how concerning is her amount of alcohol consumption? Because she said when she would go to the airport, they would check her luggage, and I guess she'll get carded, or not carded, but she'll get flagged down for whatever is in her bag at the time, I guess it was too heavy, or anything, over a certain amount of liquid in a bottle, they have to discard. So she would get that experience far too often. So I think that also explains why her daughter always picks her up, because she probably knows that her mom loves to drink. So, okay, Suzanne, I know you're 63 and you're light and you like to smile, but I don't know. Just be mindful of how many drinks you have. Okay, so we circle back to Anise. Anise is on not a date, but she's out with her daughter, Duena, and they're catching up on her latest date. Anise is telling her about the date with the British guy. I forget his name, but yeah, the British white guy, and how he's white and she is new to dating white men. But he is not new to dating black women. In fact, he only dates black women. And her daughter asks her, do you see yourself dating him again? Anise says yes, but if only there's mutual interest. And she feels like basically there isn't any mutual interest because of the lifestyle differences. And Duena's like, what do you mean by lifestyle differences? She says, well, because he exclusively dates black women and I am new to dating white men, no one wants to feel like the token white guy, right? No one wants to feel like, oh, you're just, this is a new experience and you're experiencing this with me. That may make him feel unloved or unappreciated in some way. So, and Duena's trying to say like, okay, but what's he's a man, right? Like what really is the difference here? So anyway, they get surprised by Logan, who joins them at this table. Logan makes a point to say that Anise is not vulnerable and she has a guard up. So she asks Anise, did you share anything vulnerable on the first date? Anise was like, is that normal to really be vulnerable on a first date? Duena was actually shocked that her mom gives the impression that she doesn't take up space when she comes into a room, that she kind of shows reservation, to say the least. And I feel like the way that she said that, maybe it comes across a little defensive. I feel like she's trying to say like, I'm surprised that you're saying that about her. Like, I feel like she was protective over her mother and didn't want this white woman coming out of nowhere telling her about her mom. That was the impression that I got in that tone from Duena, Anise's daughter. And what was interesting in that moment was Anise gave some more backstory about how her children, including her daughter, don't care or don't really give the opportunity to see her mom, to see her as a group. I don't know, like to see her improved in such a way. Like she's basically saying her children don't get to see the journey or don't really recognize the journey that she had to endure since the passing of their father. And all she had to be was strong, right? She had no room to be vulnerable. She had no room to fail. And that's the only impression that her daughter has of her mother. So it was like a cathartic moment in that moment there, because her daughter finally said, I really do appreciate and honor the journey that you had to make. And Anise got teary-eyed. It was a beautiful moment. So there was some vulnerability there. And it gave me insight more into Anise and how she probably doesn't realize, but subconsciously she does go into these dates, and we'll talk about a future date in a moment, well, when the time comes, but she typically dates on the surface. She typically dates with lust in mind, okay? And we're gonna see that in a future review episode, but this is something that she has been doing subconsciously, and maybe she is aware of it, so maybe it is consciously, but nonetheless, she is not someone who allows herself to be vulnerable, and it definitely shows. So we are back to Pam. 70-year-old Pam. She is chit-chatting with her granddaughter at their home, and she's telling her about Paul, who was the last person she dated, and how she was vibing with him, but she's getting the sense that he's just not that into her. She says that it feels like he blew her off because via text, he mentions that he'll be out of town. And this was like in response to when they will see each other again. And I agree with Pam. I do. I think he was blowing her off. Her granddaughter believes that, no, that's not him blowing you off. That's just him saying that he's out of town. No. Sometimes things are not always on the surface. Sometimes you do have to look between the lines, under the sheets, between each syllable, right? And I feel like he was doing that in this case because even though he may have been out of town, even though he was going to be out of town the following weekend, you could still say, hey, I'll be out of town that weekend, because maybe that's the weekend she mentioned for them to see each other again. He could still say, hey, I'll be out of town that weekend, but how about on the following Thursday we go out and I'll text you later with further details, something like that, right? Like there's a way to let someone know that you're still interested, and maybe right now is not the time to see each other again because I'm about to be out of town, but hey, I would love to see you again, and here's another time, right? Here's an alternative, and we'll go from there. Anyway, her granddaughter basically coerced her to text him again. Just show that you're interested, and if he doesn't budge, if he still gives you the runaround, then block his ass. So finally, Pam acquiesces to her granddaughter's request, and she does the damn thing. But later on, we find out that it's null and void. It didn't really go anywhere. And Pam said something interesting right before that. She said she doesn't know if he's into her or into himself. And I feel like if you have to question if someone's into you, then they're probably not. And the fact that she said she feels like he's into himself, it makes me think he gave her an impression that he is into himself, right? Maybe there were some things that he said, or just his behavior in general gave that impression. And being that he's a singer-songwriter, and I do remember on their date, he said how he frequently sings at a spot in Atlanta and that you should come out and see me sometime. That made me wonder too, like, does he just like attention? Does he just wants to be seen? Does he want to be praised? Is he the type that loves attention from women, who loves his voice, right? Does he get that often? Does he have a really good voice and he's just so used to groupie love? Like, all of those things make me wonder, maybe he is into himself. So we get back to Suzanne and Avery. They are returning home to her house from the game. Again, they're vibing really well. He says on the car ride home that he's really into her and how she turns him on. Like, he's very much laying it all out there. And I like that. She said something though. She said, "You're very forward." And she says that with the laugh. So I don't know if she's into it or not, or she's just like pointing that out. I think she is into it. Nonetheless, he is very forward. He makes it known that he's into her. He is interested, and he's only wanting to date her. He's not looking at anyone else. He even talks about threesomes, and he said how he wouldn't even want to have a threesome with her. And she's like laughing, like, why would you even think that I would want a threesome? And he's just saying how a lot of guys, they typically fantasize having threesomes with their women. But he wouldn't want that with Suzanne because he would get jealous having her shared with someone else, whether, be with another woman. I think he only met with other women. Well, in general. But nonetheless, he's really into her. And that's pretty much how this episode wraps up. So we'll end it here. Let me know in the comments, who are you rooting for? Which couple are you rooting for? What is your take on Nate, on Lisa, on Lori, Suzanne, Avery? The list goes on. Let me know what you think. Anise, her daughter. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will check in with y'all next time. Peace.